In this week's episode, I'm joined by Sumayyah Emeh-Edu from Embedded Consulting. This week, our conversation is about equality in aisle 5, Harvard holding its ground, billion-dollar frontline brilliance, and more. Hey there, my name is Bernadette Smith, and I'm a keynote speaker and writer. My pronouns are she and her. Welcome to 5 Things in 15 Minutes, my weekly show where I bring good vibes to DEI. That is good vibes to diversity, equity, and inclusion with a little dash of corporate social responsibility. What I found is there are lots of news stories about what's going wrong in the world and lots of negative data. But there are also a lot of things going right. That's what I like to focus on. I search for stories that we can be inspired by and learn from. My hope is to inspire you to experiment with some of these actions and policies to help you build a more inclusive world. Welcome to the show, Sumayyah. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Bernadette. I'm excited to be here. I love it.
Yeah, well, what a treat. And I would love for you to tell folks a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I have a background in higher education. I got into DEI through consulting back in 2015, where I started my own consulting firm because no one would hire me. I didn't have the experience. Then went on to work with organizations such as Charles Schwab. And my last role I held was a director of a VP of DEI and social equity at Canopy Growth. So yeah, I've been doing DEI work for a while, and I have pivoted a bit towards really 2 things, improving employee performance in the workplace through our mental health and well-being. And part of that is I went through my own burnout scenario 2 years ago. Over the past couple years, and it was really rough. And I learned we have a loneliness epidemic, and we spend way too much time on our phone. And those are the things my community really helped me recover. And also spending less time on my phone helped me just help regulate my nervous system and live a better life.
Yeah, I can absolutely relate. I think a lot of people can. The loneliness epidemic is huge. I feel like we're so disconnected from each other. We're so polarized. All of these things kind of compound together to the current political climate. I mean, folks are feeling psychologically unsafe at work. I mean, this is the Good Vibes show, so I'll stop the list there.
Yes, yes. What I will say in the good vibe of that is that part of the bifurcation of it's this side and it's that side and the ideology and even what's coming down on DEI recently, a lot of it is because we can't get our news from social media and from memes. That's why I love this show. You talk about the good news, you give it in context. You also give it from a point of view of like critical thinking and us discussing the viewpoints. And unfortunately, bad news travels 6 times as fast as the truth. Think about that.
Wow. Well, no wonder the show doesn't have as many subscribers as I would like.
That's okay. We're going to work on it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. And I agree. And listen, having both been through burnout, what a gift is pickleball.
Oh my goodness. Pickleball. It's so great. I did all the racket sports. I tried them all during the pandemic. First it was tennis, then it was racquetball. Now it's pickleball, but pickleball is kind of here to stay, I think.
Well, it's such a great community building activity, right? At least in my area, I'm just meeting so many new people, so much diversity. It's just a really friendly environment.
Yes. And when we are not on our phones and we get out and socialize and get active with other people out in the world, it has so many health benefits for us, not just the cardio, but like just physical touch and competition and meeting people you don't know. Like all of those things are really important for our overall well-being and mental health.
I completely agree. All right. Well, in this week's Five Things newsletter, or last week's, I should say, I wrote about transparency. I had some, in the previous week, I had written about how, I had some uncertainty. And I wrote about how I'm sticking with my message. I sort of over communicated on, what the state of my business was. And I received a lot of positive feedback about that, and it reminded me that people want more communication, not less, when there's lots of unknown. Even if that communication is imperfect, even if we don't quite know, transparency builds trust. And I'm definitely seeing the impact of a lack of transparency on a lot of people in my network whose companies, whose leaders are just not saying much. And so there's a lot of lack of trust right now. So
Yeah.
we really need to be more transparent.
Yeah. I think that's really important because it's not just like people have to know what you think. And
Yeah.
I think it's important for us to say that in a very nuanced way. I think part of the challenge with us having so many us against them mentality, the tribalism,
Yeah.
is we're afraid of the nuanced conversation. Even as a practitioner with DEI, I know I would even be reticent to talk about certain subjects that were good news or that were nuanced because I'm like, oh, people who are marginalized might get mad at me saying I think it's all good. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not that. The context is times have been hard. We've also come a long way. I am a Black woman who was a VP at a public company and had an executive package and live an upper middle class life. And like that couldn't have happened 20, 30 years ago, right?
Yep.
I am very aware of what my ancestors have done for me
Mm-hmm.
and still how far we have to go. But as practitioners, especially, we have to honor how far we've come. And yes, we're experiencing some backtracking right now, and we will survive and we will continue to get better.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There is a lot of impatience, but we know this is a long game. This work of progress, this work of equity is a
Yes.
really long game. And I guess patience is a privilege.
Patience is a privilege, and we have to understand that we can always find joy.
Yeah.
There's something always to be joyful about. And these are not the worst of times. And I don't want to sound like I'm being toxic positivity. They are not the worst of times. However, there are people who are experiencing real trauma.
Yeah.
And all of us, all the LGBTQ people, all the Black people, anyone from any ancestors had hope. And that's why they continued. And how we got here, right? Is they found hope. And that's what we have to do.
Yes. And community come together.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, let's move into this week's good vibes. All right. The first story this week comes from Colorado. So, your home state or your current state, which has officially repealed its same sex marriage ban, despite it already being invalidated by the Obergefell versus Hodges Supreme Court ruling. So, it's a safeguard in case the U.S. Supreme Court overturns the legalization of marriage equality, which has been suggested. So, way to go, Colorado.
Yeah. Yeah, I was so excited to see this. And I've seen the governor talk about this bill in particular, as well as hear him speak publicly about their commitment to diversity in the state of Colorado. So this is awesome that this has been repealed. I know some of the state senators had a lot to do with this as well.
Yeah.
Kudos and just congratulations to all the same-sex couples out there who are just breathing a little bit easier today
Yeah,
and this week.
absolutely. 35 states still have these dormant bans, so hopefully this will be a precedent for other states to follow.
Yes, exactly. And what I found interesting too about this good news is Colorado's actually been on the block several times for some, big legislative things around gender and LGBTQ issues. For instance, there was the cake, making the cake for the gay
Mm-hmm.
wedding. That was
Sure.
the Masterpiece Cake Shop versus
Mm-hmm.
Colorado Civil Rights Commission. We also had the website development one.
Yes.
We
Yes.
also had one of the first conversion therapy bans as
Oh,
well.
wow. Cool.
Yeah,
All right. Good news out of Colorado.
good
All
news.
right. The second story this week comes from Harvard University, which rejected the Trump administration's demands that threatened $9 billion in research funding. The university called this move unconstitutional and a threat to free inquiry. So, this is pretty significant. I mean, when a lot of schools are caving to this kind of pressure, this is a big one.
Yes. And I love, I heard someone say that the president of Harvard quoted, "If not us, then who?" Right? Like, a lot of state universities who get a lot more funding and don't have the endowments that Harvard does, like they may not be able to. And I was just so proud of them. I listened to a Wall Street Journal podcast about this weekend and I was so happy that they decided to take a stand, and 100 universities that have pledged some solidarity in some sorts as well afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Someone has to go first, right?
Someone has to go first, and it's kind of with those who have a lot of power have a lot more responsibility,
That's
right?
right.
And I am grateful that Harvard sees themselves that way. I also think this is a great example of nuance and contextual um, insights on. We can't always put an organization in one box on, like, oh, well, they're with it or they're not with DEI. It's very
Yes.
complex, right? Like,
Mhm.
DEI has several different factors. And I know they received a lot of heat when Claudine Gay had to step down, which was
Yeah.
tough. But I was actually looking at their representation statistics and pre-affirmative action laws. They had 20% Hispanic representation in
Wow.
terms of their student body, 11
That's
to
fantastic.
13% for Black students, 6 to 8% for Asian students, 1% for Native Americans. This is what parity looks like. Parity is making sure whatever you do is representative of the nation that you're in, of the population you're trying to serve. And even though they've received some pushback on some things, I wanted to call out something awesome that they have been doing, and that's making sure that they have diverse representation of America. And that's
Yes.
important.
Absolutely. So important. And they have free tuition, I think, for students earning or whose families earn 200,000 or below or something like that as well. So that's
Right.
also significant. All right, the third story this week comes from Navneet Education, which has a new children's book which quietly screens for color blindness using patterns embedded in everyday lessons. So that's just a book. There are no eye exams, there's no extra cost. And the book has, there are books for subjects like science or math. And the book is co designed by educators and eye doctors, and it has different triggers. So teachers and families can catch vision issues before they're mislabeled as behavioral or comprehension problems. I love this story. It's so clever.
I love this. And this is why, again, it's important for us to understand the nuance. When you look at the title, it's like color blindness. And it's like, oh, is this about, oh, well, I don't see white people. I don't see, in terms of race. It literally is about a vision impairment, right?
Yes.
And I just really thought it was great. One of the great quotes from the article as well said that these books are designed, they're already in the process of designing the book. So they're part of how it's made, and it's not something extra they're doing. It's just
Exactly.
part of how they're building the book. And that's how we should look at DEI initiatives anyway. They shouldn't be an add on. It should be anything we do, we should be thinking about, how do we include more people? Who are we forgetting? Who won't be able to read this book? And I know when I did DEI initiatives at organizations, one of the things, my daughter has special needs, which made me, extremely, my eyes open to the disability community tremendously. So making sure that organizations I was at had accessibility as a part
Mm.
of how we not only engage with clients, but how we treated our employees. That was down to making sure we had like closed captioning. We were doing alt text. And I would even train our internal designers and learning and development leaders how to make sure when they even put together presentations, how to do that in a way that was inclusive and even offer interpreters at our events.
That's
So
awesome.
it's important to always ask yourself, who might we be missing? Who might not
Mm.
be able to engage with us? And this book is just a really great start. And again, where it's like built into the product.
Mic drop there, folks. All of what you just said is that's it. That's exactly how it should be. It should just be the default. When it's the default, they can't take it away. It's just the way things are done. All right. Let's move into the next story. So, this is about the 15% pledge. So, the 15% pledge is a nonprofit that challenged companies to dedicate 15% or more of their shelf space to Black owned businesses. And they also support those companies in setting those Black owned businesses up for success. So, with all of the DEI pushback, 0 partners have backed out of the pledge, and it has redirected $14 billion in revenue to those businesses through companies like Sephora, Nordstrom, Yelp. So, celebrate the wins. I love that this is still going strong.
No, I love that you found this article. I had actually never heard of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I never even heard of it in 2020. So when it was established. So just thank you for sharing it. And I think it's important that we celebrate successes, and the 15% is for parity, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and when did achieving parity become controversial, Bernadette?
Yeah.
Like setting a goal to have the products represent, again, the country.
And it's good for business. Let's face it. I mean, these are retail businesses. Now they have a greater diversity of products that they can attract a greater diversity of customers.
Yeah. I also saw they asked her about the boycotts that are happening
Mm-hmm.
against some of the other organizations. I think it's important to know that if issues like this are complex, right?
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate the organizations that are standing up and making a commitment and not wavering,
Yep.
right? And those that can, we want to support them. But yeah, I love the focus boycotts, but I just want to be clear, if we cut out every company that supported or disparaged or wasn't supportive of DEI, it gets very complex, right?
That's right. Absolutely. All right, well, let's move into the last story this week. So, this is about frontline employees. So, more companies are proving that when frontline employees who are predominantly people of color, let's face it, and underpaid and undervalued, but when more of them are heard, their voices are heard, business wins. So, these frontline workers are closest to the customer, and ignoring them wastes insights. So, companies getting it right include WorkJam, which is sharing a story about how retail staff caught a product defect early, saving the brand massive returns. ABM Industries has 100,000 frontline workers, and they have Shark Tank style pitch contests for their employees.
Love
They have
that.
Medtronic CEO spends 30% of his time with frontline teams. So these are some big, big wins, and these employees are going to be so much more loyal when they feel valued.
Ah, I love this for so many reasons. One, Bernadette, as you know, socioeconomic status is a DEI factor, or is
Absolutely.
a factor of our diversity and of people who can belong to marginalized groups. And you're right, they tend to be people of color, disabled people, right? And I love this article just highlighting some of the successes that happens. I kind of think, don't you feel like this is kind of like table stakes, like This is what every leader should be doing.
It should be, yeah. There are some notables do it. Like the former Best Buy CEO is really known for this, but it certainly is not the norm. That's for sure. But yeah, I agree that it should be.
And I feel like it's kind of gotten worse, not just as companies have become bigger, but if you look at how elitism and class have like entered the American institutional organization, right? For instance, CEO pay has increased 1,085% since 1978, while the American worker's salary has only increased by 24%. So if you look at the context of how far, literally 2-3%ers, right? In terms of executives and what they make compared to the average employee, it is mind-blowing because ultimately your employees are the ones that are doing the work. CEOs are great. They're great for leadership. But I hope companies are embodying this experience in terms of understanding what they can gain and the value that their employees. They're not just cogs in the wheel. They understand how to get work done, and they want you to ask them and to inquire, and they want to feel engaged so that you can retain them, so they can see a way to support the organization.
Exactly. We are going to move into this week's Good Vibes to Go. I'll share my Good Vibe to Go, and then I will invite you to share yours. So my Good Vibe to Go is that I recently rewatched Wanda Sykes' last 2 Netflix comedy specials. So even though one was in 2019, the second one was in 2023. So relevant, so timely. She will make you laugh. She will make you think. My favorite kind of comic. So check those out for some good vibes. Sumayyah, what are your good vibes, or what is your good vibe to go?
I would say I'm going to go along the lines of May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I want everyone to just pause for a moment and ask themselves how they're doing and how are they taking care of themselves, and just participate in any kind of workshop or engagement that can help you gain a regulated nervous system and take care of yourself, as well as get connection, whether it's on the pickleball court.
Wherever you can find it.
Yes. Yep. But being around others, getting those hugs is so important for us to thrive. And our world's problems aren't going to be solved online. They're going to be solved when we get together and talk, like Bernadette and I have, and where we can show commonalities and how to love one another. Yeah. And that's how we get through this. So I just want to send everybody love and hope that they do well.
Thank you. What an uplifting way to start the week, Sumayyah. Thank you. Great vibes indeed. How can folks get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Sumayyah Emeh-Edu. And then I have lots of content. I have some workshops coming up next month. All things DEI, wellness, connection, all the feels. I'm here for it. And yeah, just reach out. And I'd love to hear from anyone who needs anything.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, folks, if you don't already get the 5 Things newsletter, you can subscribe at 5thingsdei.com. Have a great week. Thank you for listening to 5 Things in 15 Minutes. I hope you found yourself inspired by at least one of this week's stories. If you did, would you mind sharing it with a colleague and leaving us a review on your favorite podcasting platform? And if you don't already get my 5 Things newsletter, join at 5thingsdei.com. I'm Bernadette Smith, and I'll see you next week right here for 5 Things in 15 Minutes, bringing good vibes to DEI.